I'm going to talk about my project, which has had several stages so far, and it was the final research project of my MA master's degree in creative digital media in TU Dublin last year. And the title is a bit of a mouthful, but it kind of presents the project's main aims. So there's like the three inters there. So the intermodal, the aim was to bind two different modalities within the structure of a performance. And the intersensory, the question, is it possible to create instances of intersensory experience perception within that intermodal event? And the interactive is where the digital part comes in. So the visuals I created as part of the project were presented at the Dublin Digital Radio concert last October. It was actually 4 different gigs over 2 days, which showcased Irish experimental sound artists and musicians at the complex in Dublin. So these animations, these are not like animations, these are just like stills. I'm going to show a couple of these and hopefully a short snippet of a video as well. So they were pieces of code which reacted to the amplitude and to the beat. I had some codes that kind of reacted to frequency bands as well. So the main focus of my project was creation of visuals to be projected live, which would react to sound and ideally enhance the perception of the sound. So that was my aim. The visuals had to be possible to be set up, operated, and modified live by one person, myself. I have a background and experience in performing visuals with live music. It's just different types of music. But my previous visuals were analog or combining digital projections with analog distortions and shadow theater, traditional contemporary shadow theater. So this was my first fully digital sort of project. And digital real-time technologies have greatly expanded the range of achievable effects for audiovisual performances and made live responsive effects possible. So I think this is the area where the digital technologies were like a real game changer. So I used processing for this, and they reacted in real time to the changes in sound, but it was also like a human input because as with my previous projects, I sort of like to be able to modify these myself as well live and sort of respond to them. So to have my own subjective response included. So if I perceive something as maybe increasing in intensity, I intensify the visuals as well. So why intermodal? When I looked at, as part of the research, I looked at other similar projects from recent years, and many of their authors shared my own concerns, basically commenting on automatic visuals, which are used by many venues and events, which are kind of perceived as ineffective, disjointed. They create a sense of dissonance rather than an integrated experience, seem like randomly thrown together, and they result in decreasing rather than enhancing the perceived quality of like overall performance. They sometimes out of sync, and their detached nature becomes tiring and jarring after a short while. Some visuals introduce narratives and which like really take over. Vision is a dominant modality. So I don't know about you, but like I have many, I can think of many videos, music videos, which ruined songs for me. There's also a question of perceived lack of visual feedback at electronic music performances. So some of the projects that I looked at address that. So this is actually Jen Kirby who performed at that event, and she used to be part of the Dublin Laptop Orchestra. They kind of were working with that kind of thing as well, but in a different way. They aimed at, they kind of wanted to introduce like theatricality and gesture to electronic music performance. So there's more like a visual feedback, visual like understanding of what's going on. Because sometimes if you go to like Autech or, you know, like gig and there's two guys with laptops in the dark and, you know, it can be a good thing, but, you know, like just a bit of an understanding of what's going on, like with the traditionally when you see instruments and musicians and you sort of know what's happening. Yeah, so the aim is at accentuating the sound and enhancing the musical performance. That's Jen again. The integrating rather than adding action seemed to be the common concern for the analyzed projects and for myself. New interactive technologies used in performance in this kind of way have the potential to stimulate new artistic practices and give new solutions to performance structures and can result in what can be described as intermedia, an active mix of media rather than multimedia, just like an addition of media. Also, an interesting concern I came across was the struggle to name and classify these people like practice, which exists and sits somewhere between visual music, expanded cinema, VJing, live cinema, and live audiovisual performance. These are the most common terms used, and it comes with its own context and history. These terms came from Anna Carvalho and Cornelia Lund 2019 analysis of the current trends in audiovisual creative practices, which recognize the influence of the emergence of the real-time digital technologies in the title of the publication, the audiovisual breakthrough. So that kind of referred to this like real breakthrough moment for these audiovisual practices which came with the emergence of the real-time technologies. So what about the intersensory perception? I'm just going to show another still, this fixity performed. In terms of the perception of an audiovisual event, there's some additional interesting points which are like of interest to me, which can also be further complicated by the ideas of subjectivity, as well as ideas related to affect theory, which is something I'm also interested in, of creating moments of intensity, and as well as social, spatial, embodied aspects of a live event, which also obviously affect the individual perception. And there is also the unachievable dream of creating an intersensory experience. Some historical examples of visual music and similar projects which aimed at binding or blending music with visual arts seem to be inspired by accounts of intersensory experiences of persons who are audiovisual synesthetes. Synesthesia only recently has been proven to be a real actual case of neurodiversity thanks to brain scans. So creating simulated synesthesia is not really achievable. It's not possible for people who are not synesthetes to experience that. But in my opinion, it's a great source of inspiration and a reminder of the potential of the human sensorium and its possible creative interpretations. So the primary research part of this project also aimed to establish a loose set of indications for live visuals and grounding the inquiry in the specifically Irish context by means of a short survey I sent to some people, mostly musicians, consisted of 2 open-ended questions about remembered, memorable bodily experience audiovisual performances. And the aim was also to, based on that, to come up with my own set of guidelines. So that was based on literature research and also on these results of the survey. And I have found projects which sort of kind of came up with some of these rules for cross-modal binding. So some of them are sort of like simple, say, there's a rule of the same time. A bond is created between auditory and visual elements presented at the same time, same place. Spatial distance negatively affects the sense of causality. Keep it simple, avoid distracting elements. These actually stills that I'm showing, their patterns. I also had these like different color patches in different parts of the performances, but these were kind of like the best images. It was kind of like really dark in that space. So images are by Daryl Fihili, as it kind of stays here. So keep it simple, avoid distracting elements, and repeat. Repeated exposure increases the sense of a unified multisensory experience. So even if slightly, another interesting thing is even if slightly out of sync, our brains will recalibrate the lag, which shows that the unity assumption triggers the brain's dynamic approach to spatio-temporal relatedness. So we tend to perceive whole patterns and configurations and look for order, as in like Gestalt laws, and we look for order and adjust what we perceive in order to create a sense of synchronized patterns. So that's Alva playing. So that's kind of how it works. So because of COVID, I didn't have like the possibility to test these kind of like have a presentation. So this was the first time I was really testing these. This is an ongoing project, so I plan to introduce new elements and I will be working on it for the next 2 months. So if you would like to know more, if you know anybody who would like to collaborate, please get in touch. Thank you.